Let's do it. Welcome to the Art of Rising, where we are exploring transformation, leadership, and visionary consciousness, raising the planet. I'm here and proud to be with a great brother. I looked at his bio, he's got some fascinating things. This is going to be a barn burner. So stick around. Brother, welcome to the show. Introduce yourself.
Omar, thank you for having me. Hi, guys. I'm Greg Garunov. I'm the founder of Millennial Prime. Spent a bunch of years in W2 world and branched out to do some coaching with some pretty big motivations, looking over a 50-year span, um, looking at society, looking at men, some of the issues there, and just trying to do my small part and helping the world.
That's great. Let's get right into it, man.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
see that you're working with men and leaders in general, and you can see that there's something missing in the household because I personally came from a rough one myself. So, why don't you tell me a little bit about that? The background. How did you get to be in the spot you're in, and yeah, some of the things you're seeing now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I'll kind of start from the top. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, which was a transformative experience. As a, yeah, kid in the '90s, like before internet, in the schoolyard, a bit of a Lord of the Flies situation. But I'm
Mm.
an immigrant. I was actually born in Russia and came over here when I was a little kid, like so many people in the early '90s after the fall of the USSR. Um, but yeah, the way that I like to talk about that experience was I got to meet so many cool people from such a young age, where we would all spend like 10 hours outside together plus when we were like 10 years old, which is less of a thing these days for a lot of different reasons. But I think when I reflect back on it, and obviously at the time I was a kid, I didn't understand, it gave me a certain perspective of a curiosity around different perspectives that I think it's a bit missing in the world these days. I think people kind of get into their own head with a lot of stuff and get into their corners, and it's not for a lack of wanting to do that, but it's sort of organically where society kind of went. Um, Went to school upstate New York, Syracuse University. Kind of came back, fell into marketing a bit, stayed almost 20 years in it. Again, reflecting back on that, um, I think what kept me in it for so long is the writing and the storytelling and just the really cool people. The marketing. New York City is a huge marketing hub, and I'm a New Yorker thick and through. I live in the burbs now, but I tell my wife, "Man, I miss New York." But I also romanticize it that New York doesn't necessarily exist anymore. So, spent a bunch of years in that, and back in 2018. I came across something that Scott Galloway was started to really focus on. He's an NYU professor, entrepreneur, and he, uh, right around circa 2018, he started talking about an epidemic among men in particular, and that kind of struck a chord with me. I also come from humble beginnings, was not dealt the best hand in life, but I think what it led to, I'm 41 years old now, is this resilience armor that I have. And over time, what I realize is that I need to open that armor sometimes. And that's what I've been working on personally for the last 5 or so years. And Scott Galloway really kind of turned me on to this, where he started getting into how college enrollments among men in particular was dropping like a rock. I think now it's like 63-37 or something like that with women versus males, and it's trending that way. And listen, I'm all about equity and all that. Women are human beings in the same way that men are. Every human being has value. But I think we're heading towards a place with these trends in men that's not so good over the next 20 or 30 years. So I'm just trying to do my small part. And I feel like I kind of figured out some things in life. And obviously, it's a journey, and I haven't figured everything out. And I don't know if anyone ever figures out everything. But I think have come to a place when you put all that stuff together, the background, where I have the ability to look at some things with certain perspective, and just the healing work that I've done myself, kind of been able to separate what is the objective reality in front of me, and then what is my subjective response to that. And I think that a lot of people struggle with that, where they kind of conjoin the two. And I think it's really important to actually separate it. And journaling has been my saving grace in that, just writing everything down, being raw honest with myself. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I got one right here with the word journal on it. Yeah,
Mm.
I love it.
Mm,
It's a
mhm.
habit I've been doing for years, every single day. It's transformative. I highly recommend it for everybody, male, female, parent or not, all that stuff.
Mm.
Um, and kind of what I was mentioning to you earlier, I'm looking at this as a 50-year span because I wholeheartedly believe that if we have more people in general in the world in positions of power that are more empathetic, more curious, more collaborative, genuinely, then I think the world would be in a much better place. But the struggle is that it's really hard to influence other adults in that way. So my plan is to, and the little part that I am trying to do is to just help parents raise a better next generation. I think that's the pathway to
Mm.
some of the salvation and some of the not so good stuff that we see in the world today.
Yeah, I see you going to the root. That's the root. That's the only way you get the weeds out, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah, you just not surface, but you mentioned, Scott, right?
yep,
Scott Galloway, and
yep,
I can see that he's written several books there,
yeah.
some really great, stuff, bestseller kind of things, and that's great. We need more leaders like that. Somebody step up and say, "It's like this. It's not like that." Come on, that's
Yeah.
just fluff. And then you mentioned Brooklyn too. So
Yeah.
this is a Brooklyn accent, by the way, right?
Yeah, yeah, I saw you live in
Yeah.
Jersey now, but, yeah, once
Mhm.
I heard you talk, I'm like, "Oh."
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it.
So we came out of Red Hook,
Okay, yeah. Not the
so
best area. Yeah,
no,
yeah,
yeah, we came out from
yeah.
the back, the boondock, not even the projects, like behind the projects,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
when the bus passed, like the whole building would shake, roach infested and those type of things. It's cleaned up now, it's very yuppie, and they got IKEA back there, little
IKEA changed a lot.
cafes, and yeah,
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 yeah.
mhm. But then we moved out of there, and dad brought us to Sunset Park area. They offered him the projects, but he was like, "Nah, I came from there. I know what's there." Not that we did not get touched, with violence and substance abuse and all that, but I felt there was a better choice too, because I have other cousins too. Like when the crack epidemic came, like woof, just ate them up alive.
Yeah.
But I'm from Brooklyn, all around Park Slope, she said Bay, Bed-Stuy, all around Park Slope, all that. So I'm
Yeah, I grew up in
tri-state,
Bensonhurst, which is, yeah, right above Sheepside.
Bensonhurst,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I,
Yeah, it's very
I
different now, very different now.
very different.
A lot
Jumped
of the older
around.
Italian folks, yeah, passed away because they were older.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I know, but I know like down by Coney Island, like
Oh, yeah.
Sheepshead
Luna
Bay,
Park.
they have like
Yeah.
little Odessa,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So those neighborhoods are old and they have like rich history and stuff. So I love it. A part of me misses it, but then when I go back there, it's like so noisy and messy and crowded and expensive. Like I went took my old lady out a couple of years ago and like parked the car for $75. Like, what kind of parking
Yeah.
is this, bro? Like, come
Yeah,
on.
that's Manhattan parking right there.
Yeah, Manhattan. Yeah, it was in Manhattan. It was
Yeah,
it was just crazy. I was like, oh,
yeah,
this
yeah,
is crazy.
yeah.
But
On that note, like, I was
mhm.
unfortunately at a friend's, father's funeral a couple weeks ago, and, I pulled up and I couldn't find, like, the entrance to the graveyard, so I had to park on the street, and, I just couldn't find the entrance, so I just, like, came up to a random stranger, and I'm like, "Hey, man, my man, like, can you point me in a direction?" Like, he just I saw he was walking there, and he, like, didn't even acknowledge that I was there, and he was a younger guy, maybe, like, 25, and that just, like, put such a pin on just how New York has changed because the New York that I grew up with, that you grew up with,
Yep.
you would stop and be like, and if you don't know, be like,
Yep.
"My man, I'm sorry. I
Yep.
wish I could help you, but I don't
Yep.
know."
Yep.
That is everyone that I grew up with. I stay in touch with a lot of friends that I grew up with. They're some of my
Mhm.
best friends, and, we talk about that a lot, about how it's changed, and it's really unfortunate, and I was talking to somebody else about it, and when I was like, "Ugh, New York's not the same," and, I was explaining why, and he's like, "I think that's, like, everywhere right now," and I was like, "Yeah, but New York was always different in that way, and
Mhm.
now it's
Mhm.
kinda
Mhm.
changed in that way too."
Yeah,
Yeah,
they have us. They they have us twisted up like on the phones, and you see
Yeah,
them now, they're walking down the phone down the street on their phone.
yeah,
Like back in the days, a woman would be with her purse all tight and everything. She'd be like, oh, like I'm not gonna rob you, lady. But now you could take her purse, her earrings, the boots off her feet. She wouldn't know. She's so immersed
yeah.
in the phone. It's just crazy.
And we grew I mean, I grew up with I got a phone when I was 16, it was like 99 or something like that.
Mhm.
But it stayed in my pocket. That was for,
Mm,
like,
mm,
when I'm with people,
mm,
I'm with the
yeah.
people. Like, there's
Right,
no
right.
it's so rude to just be on the phone and where you're
Mhm.
talking or doing whatever, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That's why this work is so important,
yeah.
And then growing up, you mentioned that too. Perhaps you could tell me a bit about how was it in the life of Greg, growing up and siblings and mom, dad, and maybe you can shed some light on that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm an only child. When I was a kid, I did want a sibling, just didn't work out. I like to say I got a brother from another mother, my best friend, who we've been friends since we were 7 years old. I'm 41 now, so 35 years. It's wild.
Mhm,
Uh, we text almost every day still.
mhm,
He lives in New York and I live in the burbs now, so he was pretty sad when I moved away. But I
mhm,
got two kids of my own, and raising kids in New York is hard, especially after what happened with COVID and the shutdowns and whatnot.
mhm.
But that aside, um, like I said, I was born in Russia. I came to America when I was 7 years old. Didn't speak a word of English, so it's kind of funny that like I love writing now, and I love talking, and I love like just connecting with people over language. I think language is such a fundamental thing beyond just what the words are and the letters, and because a lot of times those are just labels. It's hard to explain anything that's really internal with us, but I think that's why like energy and vibes are actually really important. Like what your intuition says with the people that are in front of you is really important,
Mhm,
separate from the labels that we put on with words. Um, anyway, didn't speak a word of English, so I became a bit of a target for bullying, which was not great because I couldn't really defend myself because I didn't understand what they were saying and I had no way to respond.
mhm,
Um,
mhm,
but by the time I was like 12 years old, I got a little bigger. So people kind of left me alone. Got some
That
earrings when I was like 13, and like
they were like,
this was the
"Don't
90s, so like frosted
yeah,
tips, the whole thing.
like, don't mess with that
um,
guy." Yeah.
yeah. But like we didn't have a lot of resources being immigrants.
Mm,
My mom was close to a PhD back in Russia, but it just doesn't translate uh, to America. So I mean, I grew up on food stamps, you know, and yeah, I don't have memories of this in Russia, but I do remember just the feeling of coldness, the physical coldness of just standing in the bread lines. Like that's not a headline. That was actually real, and that is the
mm,
primary reason for why my parents
mm,
moved us away
mm,
from over there. Um, it definitely has affected me throughout my life, in that I think I look at resources a little bit differently than a lot of people, and a lot of kids that I grew up with. My peers were in similar situations. It gave us uh, a certain perspective of like entrepreneurship, but not from a business sense, of like creativity, of like what can you do with what you got.
mm,
And as an adult, and we hear this all the time everywhere, of gratitude and being thankful and focusing on things that we do have instead of what we don't have. So
mm,
that was like fundamentally ingrained in me because of that, because I just didn't have a lot.
mm.
So I spoil the hell out of my kids now these days. Try to be careful though with entitlement and all that.
Right, right, right.
I mean, I was a bit of a punk when I was a teenager. Like I really pushed the limits of like what I could do. Um, you
Mm,
know, uh, like so many parents from that generation, like mental health and stuff like that was just not a focus. I like to talk about it these days, of how physical fitness these days is so normalized. Like half the people that you see out on the street anywhere, the grocery store, whatever, are wearing some sort of athleisure gear. And that really started in the 90s. Like no one wore athleisure gear in the 90s. Right. And I think we're on the precipice these days of the next 30 years of something similar with mental health and mindset and just emotional health, nervous system regulation, that sort of thing. But
Mm,
back then, that wasn't a thing. So,
mm,
my parents tried their best, but they had their own stuff that they didn't really address. And
mm,
that's hard. And
Mhm.
that gave me a significant lesson of how I need to and want to parent my kids. There's articles now coming out about how I'm an older millennial, about how millennials, like, it's so hard to parent these days because not only are we trying to parent our kids, we're trying to regulate ourselves at the same time because there's so much science now of how that is the pathway to raising emotionally intelligent, resilient, children as they become adults.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, like I said, I was a bit of a punk. Frankly, to be honest with you, I went to Midwood High School. For being from Broken, you probably know what that is. Big school, 4,500 kids. My graduating class was 999 people. Uh, so that was pretty fun. I didn't even go to my graduation because I'm like, I don't want to sit in a crowd of 1,000 people. No one went up on stage, and I got my
Mm.
anyway.
Right.
But like I said, I was a slightly, a bit of a punk. So like, I'm surprised that they even graduated me because I would have like 30 absences per year.
Yeah, 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 I know. That's that good old public schooling there. I know. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, did you show up? Okay, yeah, you're good. Yeah, it's just
And
so
half the time I didn't show, but I was able to pass all the tests. So they were like, oh, there was a lot more leeway, I think, back then than there is today. Like, I
mm,
get a letter from my kid's school now of like, if they miss one day, I get
mm,
an official letter of like the percentage of how many school days they miss out of the year,
mhm,
and there's
mm,
certain threshold and stuff like that. None
mhm.
of that existed.
I see.
Uh, I had a key to my mailbox, so like my parents didn't even see my grades, even though they're pretty good most of the time.
Right.
Uh, so I got like a,
Mhm.
a taste of like how to be independent from a pretty young age, how to be self-reliant in a lot of ways from
Mm,
a young age that I've
mm,
definitely carried through to my adult life because I consider myself a very capable person. Like, I've had people tell me like, "Damn, Greg, like, if you like, when you get into something, you learn it and then you can do it." It's a
mm,
rare thing, and
mhm,
it
mm,
feels nice for the ego, but I don't think
mm,
about it that way. I think about it. I take things seriously.
mm,
Um,
mm.
so
That's important. That's important. So now you're out of the household, right? You're doing your thing, and perhaps you could tell me, when did you first realize that the culture and the model of that man, the strong man, was actually producing weak outcomes? No.
I didn't realize it at the time. It put a highlight when I became a father 7, 8 years ago. That's when I like fully
Mm,
started to dive deeper into that to really understand the nuances of that from a human standpoint.
mm,
But I love the way you phrased the question because I think it started when I went to college. Because I was one of the very few people in Syracuse University that came from a city, from New York. There's a lot of suburbs, a lot of suburbs of New York, but not inner city, not public school inner city, because that is a fundamentally different or was a fundamentally different experience than what most of my peers in college were. And just frat boy culture, that sort of thing, and dehumanizing women. It really bothered me, even when I was 17, 18. Despite me
mm,
being a punk, I was always like,
mm.
wasn't a thief. I had never got arrested, nothing like that. But there's like an honor among thieves.
Good for you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky in that I could have been arrested. I never did anything terrible, but I could have easily
Right.
been.
Right.
But there's this honor that I always sort of gravitated towards. Again, being a kid in the 90s, there were so many like my wife asked me, she's like, where do you think this like integrity honor comes from for you? And
Mhm.
being in the 90s, like, you know, being out and about and just watching movies and movie stars and watching these action heroes.
Mhm.
Like, it sounds a little silly, but it absolutely has like something fundamental to me. And obviously I realized that those aren't real stories, but nevertheless, once
Mhm.
I started getting into like history, and I loved Socrates, I was like the weirdo kid when I was 15 reading the Republic. I was no when I tried to talk to people, they're like, "What the hell are you talking about?" But like I like connected all
Mhm.
those things, and yeah, once I got to college, and I just saw like I think I got my first taste of just not just the disrespect that humans have between each other, but the disrespect that they show themselves,
Mm.
and how hard, and especially for younger people. And I think this is trending in a better direction these days. But back then, just like the complete like denial of that within themselves.
Mm.
And I like
Mhm.
I wasn't immune from that either. Obviously, I was like I said, I was a bit of a punk. Like, I felt on top. I played sports. Like, I was good at sports, good at school. So I
Mm.
felt like I was on top of the world, invincible. Like, quite
Mm.
literally when I was 17,
Mhm.
18.
But
Uh,
well, you had your parents there too, and they seem to have come from the old school.
yeah.
So did they also have those high morals, high integrity, and those type of things?
Yeah, I was born in St. Petersburg in Russia. So St. Petersburg used to be the old capital up until really after World War II, where it was changed to Moscow.
Mm,
And St. Petersburg was always considered like the elite society in Russia. It
mm,
dates back thousands of years. The Russian Empire was bigger than the Roman Empire. It's just not taught in
mm.
history books because of
Right.
the Cold War in America. And not to get into too much into that, but some of the I think highest integrity, most effective leaders actually came from Russia like 1,000 years ago.
Mm,
And I don't consider myself as an elite person. That like again, that's just a label. But I do take pride in like doing good and being a
mhm,
good person, and that means different things for me. And this is part of
mhm,
really the first starting point with when I work with men is to get clear on your values, and
mm,
that could be hard for
mm,
some people.
mm,
Sometimes there's not a clarity in that. And the really critical piece after we get clear on some of those values, does your daily behavior match those values? And that could be a shock to the system for a lot of people. It was to me when I did that years ago. I
mm,
wasn't living to my values
mm,
for a long time. I
mm,
think I was when I was younger. And funnily
mm.
enough, I think I'm living more, I'm not a punk anymore. More, I think I make better decisions these days. But nevertheless, like after spending a lot of time in corporate and just all the things that go with that,
Mm,
I think I did become sort of a part of the system.
mm.
And yeah, in recent years and part of the healing work that I've just done in myself, it's like kind of illuminated, oh, I think I tapped into something really special within myself when I was younger. So I've been trying to tap
Mm,
more into that. And
mm.
it brings a certain energy to me.
Well, maybe you can tell us a little bit about that. How did you receive your spiritual awakening or some spiritual insight? Or was it a series of things? Or was it like August the 3rd at 4 o'clock? Was
It was December 6th at 10:30 when 2018 when my son was born.
Mm,
It was a profound experience for me.
God
I
bless.
remember, I remember it was like yesterday, but also like it was, 7 years ago at this point. Before I saw him, I heard his cry, and it was like 2 magnets coming together, quite literally, like inside of me. That's the connection, the biology of that. And it's funny, a good friend of
Mm,
mine, his son's, like a year or 2 older than him, and he was asking me about the biology as soon as my son was born. And I was like, "Oh, shit." Like,
mm,
that is
mm,
a very real thing. And then I
mm,
started asking other fathers, and some of them kind of didn't know what I was talking about, and that makes me, doesn't make me
mm,
feel great, but it absolutely contributed to some of the spiritual awakening with me, where I mean, it's sliced to the core,
mm, mm,
sliced to the
mm.
core. Yeah,
That's beautiful. Growing up, people always say, "Oh man, when you have kids, man, it changes everything." That I was like, "Yeah, it doesn't seem like a real big thing." Okay, you got to responsibilities and stuff like that, but when you have your own, oh no, oh, you see it. It changes everything. The
it
way you
can.
look, the way you treat people.
Yeah,
I started seeing everyone as babies once I had my own. I was
yeah.
like, that's all we are. That guy, yeah, he's an a-hole, but he was somebody's baby at one time, you know?
We all have
So,
an inner child, no matter how old we are.
oh man, I'll tell you a quick story.
Yeah,
I was a couple of weeks back, I was in deep meditation, man. And all of a sudden, I just started thinking about my inner child, like myself as a child. And then I went to a location and I found him. He was in the corner in a fetal position, brother. I
yeah, I
picked
believe it.
him up, man, with tears in my eyes, bro. Like I looked in his eyes and I looked at him, he looked at me, and I just said, "Let's go." We started walking and walking. Before you know, we started running, and I was just bawling and crying. Oh my God, bro! So I advise that for everybody to look for that because it's there.
Thank you for sharing that and being vulnerable that way. It really connects with me. A number of years ago, also in my journey, not physically, but in my mind, I met my inner child too, where it was just kind of like this blank space, kind of just like this white, almost like, you know, the Matrix, the first one where they like, like the racks of the weapons come in and just this blank space. It was obviously no
Mhm,
weapons, but I, I
mhm,
wasn't in the fetal position, but I was kind of like sitting with, you know, kind of like with my hands over my legs and kind of like with my head down.
mhm.
And what I told my inner child was, it's okay, man. I got you now. And that also was like a major node, so to speak, in my journey where I felt like instantly healed. And it was funny because I have a younger daughter, and it was actually when I was like putting her to bed and I was just rubbing her back as she fall asleep.
Mm.
And I don't know if I ever would have come to that. I mean, it's just conjecture because, you know, I
Mm.
don't love
Right,
hypotheticals because you don't
exactly.
know how you're going to
You don't
actually
know.
react in situations. But I absolutely believe that,
Mm.
you know, being a dad for a few years now is, you know, that had a profound influence on this moment that I had.
Right, yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, you know, if people could tell me about bread, but only until I'm in the baker's shop and smelling the bread, then I get to experience it there, you
Yeah.
know, and taste it and feel it, and like, and then it changes you somehow. I don't know if bread was a good analogy, but
No, it is. Well,
who
the
doesn't like bread?
smell. Yeah, you know, the smell factor, it connects to the vagus nerve in a big way. Um,
Mm,
my friends and I from childhood, we have all sorts of intellectual debates about all sorts of things, and
okay.
sometimes they'll ask me like, "Well, hypothetically, like, you know, in this situation, how would you react?" And I'm like, I just don't love that. And it's exactly what you said. You cannot predict the way you're going to feel, the way your nervous system is going to respond.
Mhm,
We can
mhm.
regulate ourselves in the moment, but we cannot predict in the
Right.
future how we're going to respond in these situations. We can predict the way that maybe that we would think,
Mhm,
but that's an intellectual
mhm,
process that
mhm.
I believe in non-duality, but I think there is a
Mm,
separateness to that
yeah,
because
yeah.
adults, a lot of the time, we override, and I've been guilty of this. We override our nervous system and what our body, you know, they want to go. We want to go in this direction, and then
Mm,
our minds are like, yeah, but we got to do this, and there's always reasons. There's
right.
always reasons.
There's always. That's why you never really know. You never know. You don't know because you could have just had a kid and went, "Hey, it's well, what's the big thing? I just like changing my shirt or something like that."
Yeah,
But once you do experience these things, it's quite profound. So I feel that men have to be open to these experiences too, because they're just not open. And I do like to tell brothers,
yeah,
you know, if I told you about an apple and how crunchy it is and how sweet, but you're holding a rock in your hand, you would first have to let go of that rock
that's right.
in order to take the apple and experience it yourself. So
That's right.
it can be quite changing. You mentioned Socrates, and he's one of my favorites too.
Yeah,
And the charges that they got him for, right? He was not worshiping the local gods and influencing the young people.
yeah.
And I like to make the joke that that thing about the guards, oh no, he was way out on that. Like they got him good on that one, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah,
But influencing the young people, he was just
yeah.
telling them, think about what you're doing. Like, why do you even do it? You know, why do you go to that temple? Why are you wearing that clothes? You know, why do you join those groups? Or why do you, you know, and you know, the powers that be, they probably said, no, we got to get rid of this guy. You know, we can't have that, you know. Right?
So funny, 2,000 years later, we're dealing with the same stuff.
Yeah, it's
It's the
crazy.
same fundamental stuff. Too
Mm,
many of us go on autopilot,
mm,
and because it's safe, right? We see the pathway and we can see where it leads to because we see older people in the same path,
mm,
and it's safe, it's predictable.
mm, mhm,
This is part of the core work that I do with men is that
mm,
when you can see the path and that's safe, that's okay. I'm not looking to shame anybody. But you got to
mm,
intentionally choose that if that's how you want to live your life.
mm,
Personally, I think it's, for me at least, it's more valuable to
mm,
put myself in in situations that bring me a little bit of discomfort, because that's a signal that my body is telling me, hey, you might have some growth in this area. And there's
Mm.
endless like books and resources and that kind of stuff. But it's
Yes.
so true in lived reality.
Mhm.
And the reason that we feel so much discomfort connecting it to the safe pathway is because we don't know. There's a turn and we don't know what's behind the corner. And that feels unsafe because we used to think that there was a tiger there when we were cavemen.
Right.
Tiger's gonna come out and eat us. So
Exactly.
inherently, it's ingrained in our core brains and our nervous system that if we cannot predict, therefore it's unsafe.
I love
In
that.
our modern society, it doesn't necessarily work that way.
Mm,
And
mm,
that's like one of the core motivators that I've experienced with my kids is like, I want to model for my kids that, and I was talking to a friend of mine just earlier this week, where he kind of like mirrored that back to me without even me saying it. Like he wants to show his kids and really resonate with me that he took the swings that he felt so passionately about. And I
mm.
think that is so important in life to go for the things that you care so much about.
Yes.
And that's okay if it goes the grains of others' expectations.
Mm,
Others'
mm.
expectations can be a dangerous thing.
It can be. It can be, but we have to move forward. We have to,
Exactly.
no matter what, no matter what. We don't want to be cookie cutter and those type of things. You don't want that. Like I was hearing something the other day where the brother said, if you're in a room with everybody like clapping and cheering for you, you're probably not in the right room. you know?
Yeah. Hey, I used to be told by some people in the workplace that I like to be the smartest person in the room, and I'm like, I don't know. I do not. I like to solve problems, like
Mhm.
genuinely solve problems.
Right.
I don't like to create problems to then solve them like
Mhm,
uh, no,
mhm,
I like to genuinely solve problems, and
mhm,
I hate being the smartest person, or if that's
mhm.
even a thing. It makes me feel a
Right.
little weird.
Right.
I want to learn. That is my number one passion in life, is to
Mm.
learn.
Right.
That's what
Right.
feeds my soul.
Yes, for sure. I believe so too. So when you do work with men, perhaps you could tell me, what does a healthy, strong man look like? Not performance strength and, but real rooted strength. How does it look for you?
I think you said the key word, performing.
Mm,
I think a lot of men, for a lot of reasons, we set this expectation of ourselves, and as we get older, it becomes a bit more ingrained as we go down this path, because we got to turn around sometimes and go down a different path. But if
mm,
we keep going down this path of being this notion of the provider, the protector,
mm,
those sorts
mm,
of things, this the strong, physically strong man to protect our families, those are good values, but there needs to be balance
mm,
of providing psychological safety, this container of psychological safety
mm,
for
mm,
fathers, for our children. But even if you're not a dad, for just the people around us, whether
mm,
it's at home or at work, there's endless benefits that I could go on for hours on that. But just to like
mm,
name a few, for kids in particular, it's not our job to mold them into something,
mm, mm,
because we don't know they don't know who they are yet. We don't know who they are.
mm,
And if we set them on a certain path, they might realize later in life, like, this isn't me.
mm.
And there might be some issues with their parents because of that. Right.
Mm, mm, mm,
So we
mm,
have to provide this container as men, I think,
mm,
of
mm,
safety
mm,
for our
mm,
kids to become who they are. And obviously they need guidance along the way.
mm,
But as long as there's a sandbox where they
mm,
feel like they can become who they are, and they don't feel this pressure of expectation from their parents,
mm,
that's how these generational stuff keeps going, is that there's just so many expectations that we place in others. Um, but for
go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, no, but even if you're not a dad, like I think it's so critical to create deep connections with people by holding this space for them.
Mm,
And some people just naturally are good at that,
mm,
and some others we need some work on that. But I think this is true for all human beings, and I think this is part of what Scott Galloway talks about, is that there's a loneliness epidemic, not just in our society, but amongst men in particular.
yeah, I think the highest suicide rate, right, is
Out of
young.
Yeah, out of 4 suicides, 3 are men.
Yeah,
It's a
and then
crazy stat, but
I think the age range too is somewhere like around the 20s or something like that,
it's
bro.
young.
That's
Yeah.
just when you're coming into being a man, bro. Like
Yeah.
it's terrible, but we do need some sort of outlet, for that. And what about the fathers? Where do you think they're falling short on their sons? And what would you say is the first step for getting them to rise above the old patterns?
It's funny, my best friend's that I mentioned before, he's a physical therapist, and, he goes to clients and, helps them with whatever, like, physical thing that they got, and then, his clients expect to be better after the hour that he spends with them, and he's like, "I'm gonna check in with you 2 weeks. Please do these things every day."
Mm,
And he, is on his way to becoming a father as well, and so he's, like, been leaning on me because 'cause I'm a few steps ahead of him. And it's funny, like, uh, I that's what I basically told him, like, "I can't be your kid's dad."
mm,
And
mm,
he's like, "Shit," this is what I tell my cl I'm like, "Yeah," this is my clients, I'm like, "Yeah, like, I'm gonna check in with you periodically, you have to do the work. I'm gonna
mm,
help you, of course,
mm,
and
mhm,
help guide you with the things that I know are highly effective, that are universal across all human beings,
mhm,
but also, like, creating the flexibility and the space in your mind to provide that for your kids so they can become who they are as individuals, which you cannot predict."
mhm, mhm,
And so that's that's what I really start with is like one, we need to understand that concept as fathers that um, this is not going to happen overnight.
mhm,
It's a journey, and it really focuses on self.
mhm,
That's where I would start, kind of like the beyond the values and whether your behavior matches your values or not. After that, we focus on daily habits which connect to that, but are also a bridge to the self narrative that
mhm.
we have within ourselves, because we cannot lead anyone else effectively, whether it's your kids, your spouse, family, people at work,
Mhm.
unless we're leading ourselves with intention towards the places that we want to be. It connects to that autopilot,
Yeah,
that we
it
talked
should
about
it
earlier.
sure does. When I was brought up, it was, pretty rough. We were close with my father's side of the family, and alcohol was prevalent, and I'm sure
Yeah,
that there
same.
was other things going on in
Yeah,
the background too that I didn't get to see.
yeah,
But there was lots of violence too,
yeah,
especially growing up. So imagine, you're 5 or 6 years old in your family's holiday gathering, and everything's great, smells great, and there's music and dancing and joy and festivities, and then a fist fight breaks out in the living room. So it would be a surprise if I didn't grow up chemically dependent and these types of things. That would have been a shock if I didn't. So it was quite
sure.
painful. But
Yeah,
as I
absolutely.
got older, I started noticing a couple of things. One of them was I was not happy. I just knew inherently something was wrong with this. Like wherever I was going and these
Yeah,
jobs and the money, and like I was like, there's something wrong here.
yeah,
And then I wanted to get off of the ride, but I didn't know where I paid the ticket, and I
yeah.
didn't even could see who was driving this thing
The step
too.
0, not even step 1. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it was difficult to get off, and a couple of things helped me, and I was able to step away from that. And one of them is my wife too. She helped me. She wasn't
yeah,
my wife at the time, but
yeah,
she came with all this new, fresh perspective, and I was just trying to catch up with her. And once I did, I felt like I started branching out into other things, and now I just live this disciplined life, super disciplined. Like, and I'm sure I drive her crazy and the kids too, because I just feel that things should be more orderly, not the way society is telling us, like just with this, oh, I don't care, get yours. It's all about you. Like, no, I don't feel that. I
yeah,
feel
same.
that I feel that righteousness is for now. It's not a biblical thing.
Right.
Righteousness is today, right here. Like I live a righteous life. No
Yeah,
matter what happens between me and my wife, we have kids, but I would never betray her or anything like that. And sometimes people say, yeah, you can never say never, but I could tell you, man, I could tell you never, like super loyal, no matter
Yes,
what happens, bro.
I take so much
There's
pride in that. Yeah.
there's just a higher thing happening here. I didn't know that. I didn't know because my parents were fighting all the time. There was
Yeah.
violence, and then my old man left when I was 9. So
Sorry to hear that.
it was difficult. Yeah, and then the streets were waiting for me, right? Those teenage years, like 12, 13, 14. Oh
Yeah,
man,
yeah, yeah.
it was on, and
Yeah.
then I fell into a lot of garbage and stuff like that. But what do you think that what do you believe that what are some of the things that boys are craving most from their father? Because for me, my dad was my hero, man. He told me a lot of bad things, but in the later years he told me lots of good things too. He was always there no matter what, somehow, and I honor him for that. But what do you think that boys crave most?
Yeah, and thanks again for sharing all that. Yeah, yeah, I have a couple of thoughts. One, just to touch on my father, he struggled with a lot of vulnerability and emotional stuff, but he did something profound for me from a young age because he realized who I was becoming when I was a young kid, and I'm an independent thinker. I don't. I have real not issue, but skepticism about what anyone tells me about anything.
Mm,
I need to feel something this like in my intuition, and I let my intuition guide me.
mm.
And he realized that from a young age, so he kind of took a step back. And he just made sure that I was physically safe and wasn't doing too many crazy things, and softly guide me as opposed to and not necessarily molding, but kind of redirect me. He didn't try to redirect me because he realized that that would just like make me go the complete opposite way. So
Mm.
that is something that I think, depending on the child, I think that's very important to not go too far with the redirecting, to let kids make mistakes. And there's no judgment here, but I do see a lot of parents with the redirection. And there's like simple things. When you're a baby, your kid falls down, you pick them up instantly within 1 second. It's this benign thing, but it
Mhm.
teaches the child that it's not okay to fall, and they don't really learn how to pick themselves up.
Mm.
And it's a simple example, but there's a lot of those style things.
Mm.
And
Mm.
obviously safety is a major concern, especially these days. I
Mhm.
think social media has heightened a lot of stuff. But I
Yeah.
think the world is inherently less safe today, even though
Mhm.
like there's pockets of society that actually are safe when you look at the data.
Mm. Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
it's hard. It's a
Mhm.
hard thing. The other thing, and I kind of mentioned this with young men too, like this point of connection. I think the way that it translates to fathers is that I think kids want more vulnerability from their dads,
Mm.
more emotional, just availability.
Mm.
Which I think we all have read this, right? Like, it's important for men to open up, blah, blah, blah. But specifically the way it relates to kids and their expectations of their dads,
Mm.
they kids need to feel safe that that they can share what's going on inside of them. And if their fathers are not modeling that for them, how can they learn that? Maybe some kids can, a small percentage, but most cannot.
Right. Right.
And it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, that I see that a lot too. Lots of men who come through, and including myself too. My dad,
Yeah.
those crucial years, he was not there, and who did I turn to? Right? Who was I going to turn to?
That's right. You
Just
turn to somebody always.
somebody. And the
Yeah.
streets were there.
Same.
They were like, "Come on,
Same.
we got you. We're your family. We love you.
Yeah, that Lord of the
We're
Flies.
loyal to you." Yep. Hmm.
Yeah,
And all of that was lies. They turned me on to different things, and just
yeah.
it was just terrible. It was spiraling downward. But thank God that
Can I
I've
just
come
say one
out of
more
prison.
thing on that
Sure.
particular
Yes,
point?
please do. Please.
What I've learned is that, maybe a bit polarizing here, the language that we use within ourselves, in these kinds of scenarios is really important. I've been really training my own mind of like, accepting inside my body emotionally that these things happened.
Mm.
There were some objective things, and also I responded in a certain way based on my unique fingerprint of life and the experiences that I had up to that point.
Mm. Mm.
Where that brings me is where I am today and where you are today, Omar.
Mm.
Us talking about this right now. Would you would you be here in front of me right now if you didn't have that experience?
Probably not. I don't know, right?
Yeah, we don't know.
But chances are, why would I? Yeah,
Right.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's beautiful. I love that. So perhaps you could tell me about some of the work that you do, right?
Yeah.
Because it seems like by what you're saying is that you're not really leading families or parents or fathers, but I'm sorry, I'll take that back. I mean, you're leading them, but you're not managing them. You're just like this guide. So how do these leadership skills look, when families come to you, and what is it that you're doing, and what is your the format, more or less?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean the two core tenets of it that everything sits on top of are communication and comprehension. And I'll get into kind of like the things that go on top of that of how I actually, work with people. When I first started this business, I was really focused on specifically men and fathers. And what I quickly realized was that when I started like, actually, working with men, as a quick aside, like I took this concept of creating this container of psychological safety and implemented it in here. And that you're exactly right. Like I try not to be prescriptive. Yes, there are some sciencey things because I just have a passion for psychology and neuroscience in general. There are absolute hard truths, objective truths about all human beings. But then there's the individuality that comes in, and we live for thousands of days, and we all each have a unique fingerprint. So we're going to respond to different things. So it is so critical to just provide the space to explore that. And so that's really the core of it. It's communication, comprehension, and providing the space of
Mm,
people of my clients to like work through their own communication and comprehension of what's happening inside of them. In
mm,
the format, I do a few different things. I do live workshops every month, most months. I have two kids, so
mm,
sometimes I got to skip one in here or there. But I do a monthly workshop where I give people just a live experience
mm.
of what it's like to work with me.
That's
I do
in
one on
person?
what's that?
Is that in person? I didn't mean
Uh,
to cut you off, but
I've been doing done some in person, which I'll get into in a second, but they're mostly virtual because I want to capture a global audience, not just for business, but like truly I want to change the world.
I
So
got
I
you,
don't,
brother. I'm with you. Mhm.
locality is, it's just, there's some
Mhm.
limitations to be able to do that. Um, so I do one-on-one coaching. I do some group coaching as well. And as I mentioned, I started working with men, but what I realized once I developed all of like my delivery systems of how I work with people and what I actually the transformational outcome that I drive for them, this applies to all human beings. And so so I had some women reach out to me, and I've started working with some women, and then that led me to I got reached out to by a corporation. They saw something that I published to do a corporate in-person workshop in the style that I was doing the Zoom workshops. And that quickly turned into, because I was like, I want to focus on parents and blah blah. And they're like, we need to make this more inclusive. It's a corporate for all the obvious reasons. Um, and I quickly was able to just tweak just a few things. Really, the core of it, like I said, is communication and comprehension, which applies to all human beings. And when I thought back to my corporate career, my W-2 career, one of the things I loved about it is just the mentorship. And when I drilled into that, I'm like, how did I mentor people? Like, oh, it was about the way they talk to other people to get the things that they want, whether it's a raise or promotion, whatever it is. And so, like, putting that all of that together, there's really three I have a triangle of outcomes that I draft for people. The first is self leadership. So that's that self internal narrative, self sabotage. How this applies to all human beings. We self sabotage ourselves in all sorts of ways, and it's like peeling an onion. We figure out one way, and then it's like get deeper and deeper and deeper, and it's endless, right? It's just like a biology thing for us. The second outcome is just more like just general, or not general, traditional communication principles, like listening, pausing, like really paying attention to the person that's in front of you or the people in front of you and how they're reacting to some of the things. And the last one is this concept of being a trusted leader. And we kind of covered how this works for, for fathers or really all parents in the home, creating that container of psychological safety. And there's all sorts of tools that I offer that I've custom created that sort of support that. In the workplace, it's becoming the type of leader, and this could be entry level to CEO, the type of leader that people want to work with, not because it's their job.
Mm-hmm.
You said you spent some years in jobs. Like, I'd say most leaders operate in the former, where like, this is your job and you got to listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand why, and the pathway that's led to that. Like, corporations are, businesses there to make money, and employees, they are resources, but there's a human being beyond that label. I was talking about language and labels before that. And I'm building a true case study how behaving in this way as a leader where people want to lean in with increases creativity, increases productivity, because it increases the employee experience. And then clients are happier. And then bottom line financials over time also are going to skyrocket. Things like annual contract values, EBITDA, all those sorts of things. I wholeheartedly believed and continue to believe this. So I'm in progress of building the actual nuts and bolts of sort of that case study, because I think every single business, not just in America but in the world, I think really needs this, especially now with, like, I don't know if you keep up with it, the business world in general. There's all these layoffs and across every industry, and there's multiple reasons for that. I think there's a lot of thinking of like AI is going to replace some of the like resources that these human beings are able to provide. AI is not a tangible thing. It is a pathway to something tangible. You need human beings to operate there.
Right. Yeah. That's like when the car showed up, the horse and buggy, crew was campaigning like, why the cars? They'll kill you. And you need like 8 people to drive it, 2 on the side, 2 in the back. Like they came out with all these crazy things. But here we are with the horse, with the cars and stuff
Well, it's
like
a
that.
pathway. It made human experience better because we were able to travel and gain new perspectives. I really think that is the key to this quote unquote good life, happiness. It's incorporating new perspectives and interfacing and overlaying that with our existing perspectives. And sometimes that validates certain things that we know to our core. And sometimes it makes us think like, oh shit, like I was thinking this way and I was wrong.
Right.
And that's okay.
Yeah. And that's okay. Yeah. And humans should be more pliable. Sometimes you meet people, they're like very rigid, like, oh, I'm not good at that. Yeah, you're not good because you haven't worked with it. You haven't tried
Not good
it.
yet.
You have to step into it a bit. It's a whole new world. I mean, you don't want to be left behind or ran over, because that's just how humans are. We're pack animals, and either you're with the pack or you're not with the pack. It's not personal. It's like I'm trying to feed my kids here, and that's
Yeah,
so.
I think what you're hitting on, like, I think every human being, whether you're whether you're a parent or not, we want love, connection, safety. I think everyone would agree with that, even
Yeah.
when we were in the depths of our Brooklyn upbringing, where we were, in some of the not so great situations. I think in our core, that is why we gravitated towards those things, is because we felt that in the
Right.
community, a sense of community, even if it was objectively bad for us. But we were kids and we didn't know at the time.
Right. The love and the safety. Yeah. That over food. Like we could eat later, but I need that. I need to feel love. I need to feel
Well, food
safe.
is so abundant these days. I think that's part of it. Food has become, especially in America, it wasn't like, is just a quick aside. When my grandma, she came over to Russia, she came over a few years later. You probably heard these stories. She started crying the first time she walked into a grocery store. So I think in America in particular, there's just so much abundance everywhere.
Yeah.
So like, in like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, shelter and food are at the top, but I don't think that's as true in Western society, because the access has become so easy.
Right.
And so we focus, our needs are the things below that, the
Mhm,
love and the emotional not even physical safety anymore, the emotional safety to become who
mhm,
we are. I think
mhm,
that's why people, young men in particular, shut down. It's because
mhm,
they're like, I don't know, you were kind of saying the step, I don't know where steps, I don't know where to buy the ticket. I
mhm,
think a
mhm.
lot of young men, more so than maybe when we were younger, are in that space.
Mhm, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. Greg, we have I want to say men's gatherings. I don't like to say men's retreat because when I think of a retreat, I think of like sitting on the beach and drinking a few coconuts and having somebody fan me with an ostrich feather or something. But they're men's gatherings, men trainings, right? So what we do is we're not sitting around and sewing together rose petals, but we're not wrestling each other to the ground either. It's not a Spartan, a getaway like that.
Yeah.
But it is facing tons of those hard issues that men usually don't face, like responsibility, creativity, um,
Accountability.
accountability, consistency, right? Because the discipline is nice, but you got to be consistent, and some people just don't know where to start with that.
That's
So
right.
here at the Omziel Healing Sanctuary,
Mhm.
that's where we are. We're located in North Bergen, New Jersey. One of the big things that we push is tracking. You have to track what you're doing.
Yes.
On the phone, no, that's no good. You turn off the phone, it's gone. So
That's right.
what we recommend is for men to purchase a desk calendar, one of those monthly calendars,
Mhm.
and take off a month and put it on your closet door in your bedroom, on the outside, not the inside, because
So
out
you
of
could see
sight,
it
out
every
of
day.
mind,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then we have them purchase different color markers, right? Because scientists also know if everything's just black, it just fades in
Just
the
blends
background.
together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You need orange, red, green,
Yeah.
purples, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we have men tracking what is that they do, your workout, your food, your meditation, your breath work, or any of those things that you're looking forward to as
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
And we usually have them do 2 months because here you're tracking one, but you're looking at what you did, so you could see, and then you see the next month coming. You're constantly moving it, and we've had great success with that. We have a branch of the Omziel Healing Sanctuary, which is called the Wind Horse Rising Men's Experience. We just came back, Greg, from an intensive 3-day training, Friday to Sunday, and it's located in Newport, New York. If you know where that is,
Yep,
it's
I do, yeah.
upstate New York.
Yep, yeah.
And we are located on the Stone Mountain Farm. So the stewards of the land are in charge of over 250 acres of land. So
Mm,
they have different lakes
yeah.
and they have a waterfall.
Nature is so important. Yeah.
Oh my God. So that's our natural setting, not this metal, glass,
Sure.
cement. No, this
Yeah.
is unnatural. People think like, oh, this is my
Yeah.
normal. It's not normal.
Yeah.
We belong there.
Yes.
And
Could not agree more.
so we had a water purification ceremony. If you know what masagi is, it
Mhm.
comes from the Shinto belief system,
Mhm.
where you create something big that you're going to do going forward. But before you do that, you go into the mountain water as a purification ceremony.
Mhm.
So here I was, man. We were 9 men out there. We trekked out. We got the water thing, and you could see the men, like their mind. It was going through it, and we do
Yeah.
silent walking too, because
Mhm.
we could talk all by the fire, but this is nature,
This is a personal, individual experience.
Exactly. You get to hear the birds and
Yeah.
things you didn't even recognize.
Yeah.
So there's like 5 inches of snow there right now. So we're trekking through the snow. Finally got there. Each man, I blew the horn, got the drum. They took off their clothes, got in. Oh man, it was
So
life
beautiful.
changing, transformational experiences,
Yeah.
brother.
Yeah. Sounds
Yeah.
incredible. Man, I'm again, tingles. I wanna be there. I feel like I was partially there with you. You're a
Yep.
great storyteller, man.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. In fact, my name is Omar,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And my wife's name is Aziel. So that's where the name comes from. Ziel.
Oh,
We
god.
put it together. Yeah. So me
Oh, I
and my
love that
wife
so much. Yeah.
started this together. Once we got clear of some things, and got these messages telling us to let go of some things.
Yeah.
And once we got cleared, then we started getting other messages, and the message was saying to serve other humans. So I went from a guy who I didn't want anybody in my house unless you have some booze or something else, to the guy where
I
I
hear
just want
that.
everybody in my house, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
just open our home. We turned our two family home into the sanctuary that it already is.